Hello, you lovely people, and thanks for dropping by. We're going to talk about my friend who, as you've been following my channel, you will know the story, but in case you haven't, I will refresh you, or for the people who hasn't seen the video before. And what it was, my friend, he was in a relationship with a Filipina, and he's an American guy. And he was in a relationship for 8 or 9 years, and he broke up with this Filipina, his girlfriend, for a long time, and she had 2 children, and they were living together. And the reason he broke up was because she had a bit of a split personality, which I did witness this myself. Meaning, sometimes she was good, and at other times she was not so good. She was hot and cold, and when she was in a good mood, she was a lovely lady, in my observation. But when she had these down, or these episodes, we'll call them episodes, she was like a Jekyll and Hyde. She was kind of scary, frightening. And before I met her, I knew my friend for a while, even before I met her, and he was talking to me about it. And he said, "Steve, listen, I'm a little bit concerned." He says, she's up and down, and she's throwing things at me, and she's shouting and always arguing and accusing him of things, and she was really jealous as well. So anyway, he finally plucked up the courage to leave her, and he did leave, and his partner, ex-partner, was not friends with my wife, but they were kind of, or she was messaging my wife quite regular. Not before they split up, but after they split up, she was messaging, and she was saying, is he there at your place? And I said, Mira, don't get involved, because if it's going to turn nasty, I can see it's going to turn nasty. And she was kind of blaming us for their breakup, basically saying, since he's met me, that I've kind of made him distant towards her. And that was totally wrong. What it was is, I started taking him fishing because he didn't know what to do with himself. He didn't want to be in that situation where he was in the house and she was shouting at him and throwing things and being very aggressive towards him. And when they used to argue, because they lived at the time, we didn't have this place. This was 3.5 years ago. We was living in this apartments, and it was a long line of apartments, and my friend was right at the end, and he had chickens and he had all kinds of things like that, just to keep him occupied. So when they argued, you could hear it. You could hear her mainly shouting, and my friend was quite vocal himself, but he was more placid than her. I think he knew his limits, how far to argue with her before she became aggressive. So she was blaming me for him leaving. She said, "Oh, Stevens took him away and this, that, and the other." And I didn't. I just give him something to occupy his mind. Gone fishing. Anyway, they broke up, and it's about 6 months after, and he found a new partner. And also, they had finance on a couple of motorcycles. I don't know why, but he didn't like to pay cash. He preferred to pay the monthly payments. And the bike, there was one for him and one for his wife. And he also had one of those 3-wheeler things, not the motor cab, the other ones, the what they called, a Obo or something like that. And he even said, before he left, he said, I will continue the payments, which she did for a time. And anyway, 6 months later, or somewhere around about that time, he found himself a new girlfriend. And I said to him at the time, I said, you're doing the wrong thing here. I said, at least leave it longer, because she was still causing trouble. She was still calling my wife up, and I said to my wife, just change your SIM card, which she did. She did change the SIM card, because the messages, because my wife wasn't answering sometimes because she didn't hear the phone, or she wasn't by her phone. Another time she was doing it intentionally. She wasn't answering because she didn't want to listen to her. So she changed the SIM card. So then, obviously, she couldn't get through. Now, I said to my friend, I said, look, you're doing the wrong thing here. I said, if she sees you in Dipolog, she's going to flip out. She's going to flip out. And she's going to think that all of these stories or these thoughts that she had was true. Because she was always accusing him of having affairs. And he wasn't. Not to my knowledge, he wasn't. But she was always accusing him because she was very jealous. And anyway, this was when the trouble started. And he should have moved away. But he didn't. And you'll know the story in a minute if you haven't been following this story. So, he was in Dipolog with his new girlfriend. And his girlfriend was about 15 or 18 years younger than him. And he was 2 years younger than me. Okay? And his ex-partner was about the same age as him. So there was no age gap with that. And anyway, the worst case scenario happened. She bumped into him in Dipolog City. Because she worked in the city as well. And I said to him, I said, you're doing the wrong thing. You're going to antagonize her. And a woman scorned, we all know that at the best of times, a woman scorned, especially when the breakup didn't come from her, it come from him. She still wanted to carry on the relationship. He didn't. So the shit hit the fan. She made, there was a confrontation in the city, and there was a shouting match. And it just got nasty. It got nasty. And I told him of this. And he was still coming here to see me. Because by this time, we'd left that place. And we was living just up here while we started building this house. So we was living in a little Baha'i Kobo, which was, you can't see it, but it's that kind of orangey building up there. We was living up there. You can't even see it through the trees. But it's an orangey building. But it's made of hardy flex. And he was coming over to see us maybe twice a week. And he was giving me a hand on here. He was doing a bit of labouring, and just to keep himself occupied. And I met his new girlfriend. And she seemed very nice and very pleasant, very quiet. Totally different to his ex-partner. And we arranged to go fishing. And it was on a Saturday. I won't forget it. It was on a Saturday. And I said, be round here at my place at around 5 in the morning, to catch the tide. So, and he was always kind of punctual. A little bit late, 5 or 10 minutes, but if he said he was coming, he never failed to come. He always turned up. And he was going to bring his girlfriend, and his girlfriend was going to stay with Mira, just talking to me while we went out fishing for the day. Anyway, he didn't turn up. And I thought, maybe there's something wrong with his bike or his little three-wheeler thing. And no, I sent him a message. And I sent him several messages, actually. Hey, where are you? And then he sent a message back, and he said, the police have been round to the house. His house. I said, oh, yeah. Why? And he said, I don't know. He wasn't in, his girlfriend was in the house. Because he moved, he left the place he was with his ex-partner, and he was renting a place in Dipolog apartment. How they knew where he was, I don't know. Even to this day, he doesn't know. So, he wasn't in, and his girlfriend said, come back, in an hour he'll be here. So, they come back. This is what he's telling me. And they arrested him. And he was in the police station. And I said, can I come and see you? He said, well, not just yet. He says, because I'm being processed, the fingerprints. And I said, why? He said, I don't know yet. He says, they haven't told me. I said, well, will you be out? He says, I don't know. He said, probably. So anyway, I went to see him, and this was in the afternoon of the Saturday. And I said, well, what have you been charged with? He said, I don't know. He says, they haven't mentioned it yet. And he was in the police station at this time, in the holding cells in the police station, while they were still processing. So I come home, and he still had his phone. They were still allowing him to have his phone. And I was in touch with his girlfriend, or my wife was in touch with his present girlfriend, and they're still together even now. And the charge come through, which was sexual assault. I thought, oh my God almighty. And even he said, I don't know where this has come from. Anyway, he was charged with that, with sexual assault. Can you imagine that in the Philippines? Anywhere, but bloody hell, especially in the Philippines. You're miles away from home. So he was charged with sexual assault. She made an allegation against him. His ex-partner made an allegation of that. Now, she had a relation, his ex-partner, with the mayor of Rojas, which is a municipal not too far from here. And she made an allegation, and she made a statement. Now, he read the statement. He was like, because he had a solicitor. He read the statement, and he said, this is not her, because it was too perfectly written. So obviously it was done by an attorney, and the words were actually very well put. Anyway, then he was, as I said, he was charged. He was in the holding cells in the police station. I kept going to see him. I was taking him books and things like this. And he was thinking he's going to be out soon because it was a false allegation. She was disgruntled because she saw him with another woman. So she made up this allegation. Anyway, to cut a long story short, because this was going on for a long time, I kept going to see him. And the court case come up. He got transferred from the police station to the city jail in Dipolog, in Dicayas. I think it's Lower Dicayas. So he was in there. And the cases here, people, in the Philippines, is not like it is in the West, where the cases are dealt with quite quickly. Here it just drags on, and they adjourned and adjourned. Anyway, at the end of all this, and this was like 3.5 years later, or 3 years and something. I think it's 3.5 years. They couldn't get him. There wasn't the evidence on the sexual assault. So that was dropped. So what they did get him on was verbal abuse. And what verbal abuse means when you've been arguing, it's an argument. And because he admitted to arguing, he kind of admitted to his own guilt. And it's absolutely ridiculous how you can be charged with verbal abuse, with having an argument, basically. So he was charged with that. And because he admitted to arguing with his partner, his ex-partner, on several occasions, that stuck. So he was charged and he was found guilty of it. Now, what happened then was he was then classed as a undesirable. And he then was waiting for sentencing. But because he'd spent that much time in prison, the judge had said, you've spent enough time in prison. That's it. Your sentence has been served. But they started deportation order against him. So he knew he was going to get deported, and he knew that he was going to get blacklisted, right? So this has been going through for about 6 weeks now, and because he was sick of it all. He'd lost so much weight. He looked terrible, to be honest with you, and he still does, because I saw him on video call yesterday and the day before. We've been calling. I'll tell you how, because he's to expedite the deportation, he went voluntary, what they call voluntary deportation, because he'd already been served his deportation. So he said, I want to go voluntary. So he didn't have to go through a court. There was no appeal. So now he's been deported. He's been blacklisted. His present girlfriend is still in the Philippines, and she was here last night talking to my wife. I was talking to Manuel. And he's now back in California. Now, he's got lots of stories to tell, because when I was going to see him, which wasn't very often, because in the jail here you could only visit twice a week and only one person. So if I went there, then his girlfriend couldn't go and see him. So I only went sporadically. I said to his girlfriend, "Is it all right if I go and see him this time?" She says, "Yes, if you want, Steve." So I saw him a few times, and I said to him when he was in prison, "How are you getting on?" He said, "Yeah, okay, okay." And I knew he wasn't. Um, he couldn't say a lot of things, which I didn't know up until I was speaking to him just recently. So now he's back in America, in California. He's been deported. He's got a blacklist. He can't come back to the Philippines. He's been classed as an undesirable. And he wants to do, or I suggested to him, I says, when you get yourself sorted out, you put a bit of weight on, you get yourself a bit more fit, would you be willing to do a live with me? Because I can give him the link and he can join a live video with me. And it'd be like, he can tell his story better than I can to you guys. And he's willing to do it when I don't know, but he's willing to do a live. And he said, "I'll questions and answers if you want to do that. What's it like in the prison? What was the process like?" And he said the guards were actually quite good, but he was, because he had like an army pension, and he said what he was doing for his own safety. And he told me that he was buying things for the prisoners. I said, "Well, why are you doing that?" When I visited him. And he said, "Because I just want to do it." Well, he was doing it. He was buying his protection. And he was buying his protection to the guards. He was buying electric fans for some of the prisoners. He was buying, because he was in like where he was in with like a lot of prisoners. This was before he was sent to Manila in that, what's it called? Where they put the foreigners when they're waiting for deportation. Before he went there, this was when he was in the city jail. And he was buying this and buying that. He was buying his safety, people. And he was buying the prisoners food. So he was spending his pension. Not all of it, obviously. He wasn't spending all of it. But he was spending a large amount of his money buying prisoners this, that, and buying some of the guards this, and he's buying cigarettes for the guards as well. He was telling me a lot of things which he couldn't tell me when I visited him, because he might have jeopardized his safety. But what he wants to do, people, is put his story across in a live video. When, I don't know, but he looks terrible. He's pleased to be back. He's going to try and get, because he can't come back to the Philippines. He says it's pointless. Even if he tried to repeal it, it's not going to work, because he was charged. He was charged with it and found guilty of it. So what he's going to do is trying to get his girlfriend to America. And he's going to come to, when he gets himself sorted, he's going to come to Thailand or Vietnam. And I will meet him there as well, because he can't come here, obviously. I will go and meet him and catch up with him again, because he was a good guy. He still is a good guy. But it just goes to show you, people, like I said before, how a disgruntled Filipina can make an allegation, like an allegation against you, and she can just turn your world upside down. And this is exactly what's happened. And it is quite worrying. But people, don't let it put you off coming to the Philippines. I mean, I had a relationship when I first come to the Philippines. It wasn't with my wife, it was with someone else, and that, she was quite aggressive as well, but I got out of it, and thank heavens I moved away, and I just kept a low profile for some time, and then I found out she was with a different foreigner, so then I was safe. But I kept a low profile because I didn't want her causing any problems for me. So it goes to show you, people, how a simple allegation and a statement can get you put behind bars here. And like I said, there was no bail for him either, because he was in prison for a long time. There was no bail because of that particular charge, this sexual assault. So he couldn't get bail. It's not bailable. So he spent all that time in prison, and he spent a lot of money on attorneys. And also, she said to him during this trial, she wanted him to pay money to her, and the case would have been dropped. He would have been out. But because of his pride, and because he didn't do it, he said, he wouldn't pay the money. He said, "I'm innocent." He said, "If I pay the money to get out of this prison and to drop all of these charges, then it looks like I'm guilty." And he wouldn't do it. If that had been me, I would have paid the money to get out. And he would have still been in the Philippines because there'd have been nothing against him. He wouldn't have been deported. He wouldn't have had a blacklist order placed upon him. But he didn't. And the story goes on, and there is part of the story that I would like him to tell you when he's feeling up to it. But he said to me, when I was speaking to him on a video call yesterday and the day before, he said, Stephen, he says, you don't know that the half of it. But, and also, even the judge even said to him, pay the money, and then you're out. Now, everyone would have been in on this, the wife, his ex-girlfriend would have getting some money, the judge would have probably have getting some money, the attorneys would have getting some money, and I can't remember the amount. I think it was either 2 or 3 million pesos. I can't remember the amount. I will find out. But anyway, during this live, when he's up for it, he will be explaining this to you and telling you the story. And I don't do lives, very rare I do lives, but this live I will be looking forward to doing. And if it can help anybody out, it'll be worth it. But I don't think, because we never know, do we? Filipinos are very jealous. They are very jealous creatures, and it doesn't take a lot to make their minds think up stories that don't exist. But it just makes me think that why would people put themselves in that position? Well, they don't know that they are in a position until something like this happens. Like you have an argument and then you split up and then you with another woman. What I would have done, which I said to Manuel at the start, I said, you shouldn't be doing it here. Keep it secret. But he didn't. He didn't bring it upon himself because he didn't think all this was going to happen, but he shouldn't have flaunted it. And I said this to him when I saw him in the police station. You shouldn't. I said, I told you. I said to you, don't do this, especially being the kind of person that she was. But there you go, guys. And Filipina P, she did a video of my video that I did before about can you be arrested on the charge of verbal assault, and there was an attorney on her channel and he said yes you can, and it happened to him. So just be careful, people. Don't let it stop you coming to the Philippines. The Philippines is a beautiful country. I don't know anyone that this has happened to apart from my friend. It's probably happened to many people in the Philippines. I don't know. I don't really mix with a lot of foreigners here, so I don't know any stories other than my friends. But don't let it put you off coming here. It's a worry. It is a worry, but I think if you find a lady with a good personality and she's nice and placid, and you've got a good relationship, you've got nothing to worry about. Or stay single. Stay single, I think. If you're that worried about it. But don't let it put you off coming to the Philippines, people. Okay? So I'm going to give you like a little last look around. And thank you for dropping by. And I hope you enjoyed this video. And please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. And hit the notification bell if you would like to. It doesn't cost you anything. A little last look around. I'm just sat in my van because my boy is... So there. My garden. My boy sliding some chickens. Thank you, people. Catch you next time. Bye-bye.